it's Donna from Donna's Corn-Free Cooking, and today is the day that I am going to make for you my corn-free pie crust and my corn-free pecan pie. It's that time of year where everyone is doing baking of some kind or another, doing pies, cakes, cookies, candies. So my next few videos are going to be devoted to making those things that a person with my allergy cannot eat, and show you how you can enjoy the same treats but without the risk of being exposed to corn or corn derivatives. So what I've got in my bowl, I have 2 2/3 cup of flour, and to that I'm going to add 1/4 cup of sugar. Then I will add a 1/2 teaspoon of salt, and then I'm going to mix that up with this wire whip. To that, now this is a recipe, I'm adding 2 sticks of cubed butter. This is a recipe that you can do in your food processor, and I don't have a food processor any longer, so I'm doing it by hand. But when you do it in the food processor, it takes a couple of minutes, and that's it. So what I do is I use a heavy-duty wire whip, and I just press it through the flour, like so. And what I'm doing is breaking up the butter. You can use a pastry blender for this, 2 knives, a fork, whatever. But for me, I just do it this way. Since I was here last time, I've been really excited about trying to share with everyone about this corn-free allergy I've been on. And you can tell everybody different things, what you've been through, but it's only the person going through it that can decide what is best for them in dealing with this allergy. Now for me, one of the things I have found, because when I became allergic, I went off food, I started reintroducing foods, and for about 3 months, my body was going through this heavy-duty cleanse of getting all the corn toxins out of my system. And after that happened, my body was so cleansed, I didn't get sick for 2 years. I didn't even get a cold, which was great. And it just showed me that I was being poisoned. And that's the way I feel about corn. I feel like we're so bombarded with it. I feel like I've been poisoned. But now I am to the point, even though I read every package, I watch what I eat, I watch how I buy foods, I found that I can do citric acid, which may or may not be made with corn. It's up to you to decide. But I use a lot of canned tomatoes, and it does have citric acid. I have yet to find one that doesn't, but I have not had a reaction to it. So I've been pretty safe there, but like I said, it's up to each individual as to what your body can do. And then I use heavy whipping cream, which most of them, they have monodiglycerides in. And this week, while I was researching on the derivatives, I found that for monodiglycerides, it is made with a product called glycerol. And in researching glycerol, I found out it's not made from corn. It's made from soybean, coconut, and palm oil. And I thought, well, that's interesting because it was on my derivative sheet. So what you have to do is just decide for yourself if you want to try it or not. And fortunately for me, in my experience, I have not had a reaction to the monodiglyceride. So those are 2 so-called corn derivatives that I've not had an issue with. There are things that can't, sometimes it can be made with corn, But I think because I cleansed my body so well that there's nothing there. And so I can deal with it without having a reaction. I wouldn't advise anyone to do that has this allergy, but I would tell you, you have to go by how you feel and what you think. As I said before, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a nutritionist. I'm just someone who's been dealing with this for a very long time. Now, on to the rest of this recipe. I've got that thoroughly incorporated. So I'm going to add 3 tablespoons of ice water to these egg yolks that I have separated and whipped. You want to whip that pretty good, like this, and then you add it to your mixture. I usually take a spatula and work it together till it gets to a certain point that I have to use my hands to finish forming the ball. As I said, you use a food processor, you've got this done in 5 minutes. But when you do it by hand, it does take a little bit longer, which I don't mind because I've cooked that way my whole life. So we'll get that all processed together. And now it's time to go back to my hands again. Okay, it's coming together just fine. And what I love about this pastry is I know what's in it. And I use regular bleach flour, but for those of you who are afraid that the bleach flour might have a corn derivative, go with unbleached. It works just as well. But I'm so used to the regular bleached flour, and it doesn't cause me any issues. So I just go ahead and use it. Okay, now we're getting this all mixed up really, really well. So I'm going to take some of it and I start forming a ball like this. Because what you want to do is once you get it all mixed together, you're going to make a disc out of it. And that's what helps to shape your pie dough so that you can have it for what you want. I love making this kind of a pie. It's so yummy. And the crust is so good. And the 1/4 cup of sugar, you're getting 2 pie crusts. So you can use this either for a single pie or a double pie, or 2 single pies and a double pie. And you're not getting a whole lot of sweetness, but it gives it just enough. It's really good. And I do the same when I do a cookie crust for like my cheesecakes. Okay, so there's 1 disc, as you can see, and I'm going to set this to the side for a minute. Then I'm going to get all the dough together and form a ball, another ball. This will be our second one. And I'm starting to throw it everywhere, which that's typical of me when I'm cooking. I've heard it said, the best cooks are the messiest. And I'll be honest, I worked for a chef and he was. His cooking was out of this world. But he was the messiest man I ever saw, and I'd have to go behind him. He called me his prep cook, but my prep was usually cleaning up after him. But I learned a lot from him, so I really appreciate the time I got to work with him. Okay, we've got just a little bit more to incorporate here, and we'll have this ball all done. Oops. Now, I use 2 egg yolks in this dough, and some people I have found that have the corn allergy, they're staying away from eggs completely. Well, I stay completely away from fresh laid eggs from hens because normally they're fed grain with corn. And whenever I have done fresh eggs from the chickens our neighbor has, I make an angel food cake. I immediately have a reaction. But if you do cage-free or even organic, usually the chickens are out just roaming around everywhere. They're not given grain. And I do fine with those eggs. And you can too. So it's up to you what you want to do. Some people totally stay away from them. I would suggest probably if you didn't want to use the eggs in this recipe, you could probably just add about 3 more tablespoons of ice water. And I'm sure it would work just as well. So now I'm going to get my plastic wrap, which I forgot to put on my table. And we're going to wrap these discs up so I can refrigerate them. There's one. And I hope I got that in the video. I'm still in a learning process with this camera. So, catastrophe. So my husband helps me out by checking to make sure I'm in the shot, that I'm lined up the way I should be. But I tend to move around a lot, so that's kind of a hindrance. Okay, so we're going to set that to the side, as well as that, and this. And these are going in the fridge right now. And you chill the dough for 1 hour. And during that time while it's chilling, you can be busy getting your filling ready for your pie. Since I've already chilled one down, and I'm going to roll it out. We'll see what happens here with this. Hopefully it'll come out the way I want. Sometimes though, when you want it to come out a certain way, it doesn't. So it's just a matter of practice, as I've been told many times. I'm just going to sprinkle just a tiny bit of flour so the rolling pin doesn't stick. And already I see it starting to break a little. But I like to go in a circle when I'm rolling out pie dough. It's the best way I know of to try to keep it from splitting. Pie crust has never been that much of my forte as far as cooking. Like, I've already got a big split right there. It's just wanting to be contrary. But I do the best I can with it. We'll see what I come up with. It is definitely wanting to split in that center. So just work it together with my hands. Okay. Work out these edges, because those seem to be doing better than the center. Okay. Get this rolled out so we can get it in the pie shell. And I hope you all enjoy this and enjoy the videos I'm going to share with you. After I do the pie video, the next video I will be doing is for my cookies. I have a recipe that I do. It's been very hard because I love cookies. And it's so hard when you're allergic to corn and corn derivatives and you can't go out and buy a package of cookies. My favorites used to be Oreos and Fig Newtons. Fig Newtons really were my favorite. But because of the corn derivative in it, the corn syrup, I couldn't do it. Okay, so I've got that big enough to go in my pie shell. And I always try to fold it in 4s and lay it in the center, where the point is in the center. Pull it over that way, then that way. And of course, we're still going to have a split in the center, but that's due to the fact that the pie crust is not wanting to cooperate with me today. Okay, so we've got our crust in here. I'm going to work that together, smooth that a little bit, push it down in. And then I always pinch. My son, who is a chef, he always does specific designs. My favorite design that he does with dough is a rope design, and it's just awesome. Of course, I can't do that. So what you see is what you get. I do it the way my mother taught me, just kind of pinching it with your fingers. And I would like to do a really, really pretty crust for you guys. Okay. And it's coming along pretty well. I forgot to bring a knife over so I could trim the edges. My husband loves my pies. If I don't get in there and get some, a lot of times he's got it gone before I can even have 2 pieces. I think once I got 1 piece out of the whole pie, but it just showed me that he really enjoyed what I was doing. And that's always a compliment when your pies just disappear. Okay, let me grab a knife. I'm going to trim this crust just a little bit more. Okay, so there's my crust in my pie shell, and it's not perfect, but I think it's good enough for what I want. So we're going to set that to the side. I'm going to set this over here. Then I will get my ingredients together for the filling. So that'll be the next step. Hey everyone, now we're ready to do our pie filling. And as you can see in this big glass bowl, I have 4 eggs, and I've got a wooden spoon. The important thing I learned about doing pecan pies, even before my corn allergy, is you need a glass bowl and a wooden spoon. Never use a stainless steel and never use a wire whip. It does something to the eggs, the metal does. Don't understand it, but this is what I do. So what I'm going to do is just stand here and start whipping those eggs. And I do this for about a couple minutes, and it's to get them real thick and lemony, and they start boiling a little bit after you've whipped them for a while. I made this recipe out because the other recipes, they all use corn syrup, and being like I am, I'm not going to put myself at risk. And pecan pie is my absolute favorite pie. And it just devastated me for a long time because I couldn't eat it. Until 10 years ago, when I started making up my own recipes, it was very difficult because the cravings were there. But I got to where when I would go in the grocery store, I would just inhale the smells of the bakeries or the candy aisle, and they satisfy me. I don't go in and say, oh, I want a donut, or I want a cake, or this or that. If I want something sweet, I just make it. And it's so much easier knowing what I'm putting in it and knowing that it's corn-free, and I don't have to put myself at risk. Okay. One thing about doing this, it does work the arm, but I want them to be real thick and lemony. As you can see, they're starting to boil up just a little, and that's what you want. You want your eggs to start bubbling up. That's what helps the pecans, when you put them in the bottom of your crust, to come up to the top. Okay, I don't know if that's been 2 minutes, but I'm going to stop right now. As I add my other ingredients and whip it some more, it'll continue to build up. So first I'm going to add 1 cup of sugar. And we're going to do 1/4 teaspoon. Yeah. 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Everything has to have just a touch of salt to season it. So I add that in. And then I pour in my pure maple syrup. I go through a lot of maple syrup. It's a little more expensive than buying the corn syrup with maple flavoring. But for me, it's a life, it means my life. So I stay away from the imitation types. And it's hard because once in a while we try to go out to eat. No, I spilled again. Overlook me. I try to go out to eat, and I want pancakes and syrup so badly, and I cannot have them. So I make my own, which I will be sharing with you. I make my own pancake mix, 5 minutes to whip together. And I buy my maple syrup, and I make my own pancakes and use my natural syrup, and I'm good. And we do that usually once a month. Okay, as you can see, it's starting to look golden color, and you whip it in really well. And of course, I already started to spill my eggs again, so I'm making another mess. Have to overlook me for that. It's a habit of mine. I try to be so neat and clean, then I'll spill something. So it's just a natural thing. So this, I just keep doing this to it. And yes, it gets tiring on your arm. You can stop for a few seconds and then pick it up again. And I usually stop long enough to see if it's starting to boil, which it is. As you can see, all the bubbles. I call it literally boiling up without heat. The thing about this type of pecan pie, I bake it for an hour, and sometimes the center doesn't seem like it's solid. Well, as it sits, it does get harder or thicker. So don't worry about that. I would rather have it a little bit soft and know that it's safe to eat than to have one that's solidified that you can just pick the piece up and eat it and have a reaction. Okay, so we're getting there. And I usually judge by how much it's boiling up as to if I need to keep beating it anymore. Okay, so we've got our timer going for 5 minutes, and we've got just under 2 left. I've whipped this enough that it's been boiling up. I've got my pecans in the bottom of the pie shell, and what I generally do with that pie crust is I pierce it with a fork. The reason for that is it keeps the crust from swelling up through the pie. My mother, she absolutely threw a fit when I did that. But if you don't do it, you're going to have pie or crust in the top of the pie instead of it in the bottom. And so I've always done that in every pie I've ever baked, and I don't have any problems with the crust coming up through. If I don't do it, I always have a crust up on the top. So this is the best way to do it. We've still got about 1 minute and 20 seconds. And then I can add the butter and whip that in and then pour that into the filling or into the pie shell. And we'll get that in the oven to bake at 350 for 1 hour. And then we'll come back and see how it came out. Okay, let's see if that timer is going to go off. I may have had this sitting a little bit longer. Nope, 59 seconds, and we should be good. But while that's going on, or ticking down, the next video you will see is I am going to do my cookie recipe, which is all corn-free, and I call it Donna's Pecan Sandies. And I use, it's mainly like a cup, except for the flour. You use a cup of butter, a cup of sugar, and a cup of oil. And you whip that in, I use my stand mixer, and then you add your flour and your salt and mix that together really well, and your chopped pecans. Once you've mixed that, then you take it, and I'll show you how to make the log rolls that I do, and then you just put it in the freezer for a couple of hours and then bring it out, slice them, and cook it. Okay, our timer is done. So now I'm going to pour this in to my pie shell. Oh, no, first I'm going to add my melted butter. I almost forgot that. That would be a disaster. I don't know what it is, but melted butter just in there just gives it an extra rich flavor. Okay. Getting way ahead of myself here. I'm in a hurry to get this pie into the oven. So now we pour it in. Oh, look at that. Oh, that looks good. And all of the nuts are coming right up to the top, which is what I want. Okay. So we will get this into the oven, bake it for 1 hour, and then we'll come back and see the result. Woo, I think I'm going to put this on a cookie sheet. Generally, I use a glass pie pan, but this time I thought I would do a disposable one. And they're very flimsy, they're not very sturdy. Okay, so we'll get this into the oven, and we'll see you in an hour. Now everyone, I want you to see this beautiful pumpkin pie, or pecan pie. Look how beautiful it baked up. And it's not jiggly. It's got a nice center, a little soft, but as it cools, it'll get thicker. And I want to tell you guys, it's such an easy recipe, but I will tell you that if you use a disposable pan like I did, you only want to bake it for 45 minutes. I had it set for an hour, which is what I always bake it out in my glass pie pan. Glass pie pans do 60 minutes. Disposable pans do 45, and it baked up beautifully. So I hope you tried this recipe, and I hope you enjoyed this video. I know it was a little crazy and little things got out of hand, but I want to tell you that you will enjoy this pie recipe. So if you will like and subscribe, and please comment, because what I'm going to do next Friday is I'm going to announce winners of these specific 2 recipes for my corn-free pecan pie and my corn-free pastry dough. So make sure you like, subscribe, make a comment, and hit the bell, and I'll be picking out my winners and announcing it next Friday. So see you then. Bye.